I didn't hit the right button. Hold on. Crap. There we go. Now it's working. Welcome to Love Wrestling Reacts. I'm not doing well running streams lately, so this will be fun. But it's Ed Price back again, joined with Parrish on the other side. How you doing, Parrish?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
This is just it's been a week for me running streams. I mean, it was an absolute cluster on NXT.
What do you mean?
You know exactly what happened on NXT. We're not going to talk about it. We agreed post-show that we weren't going to talk about what happened on NXT anymore. That being said, I'm Ed, this is Parrish, and we're going to talk about the things that have happened this week in wrestling. But before we start that, we want to thank our fantastic sponsors at RK Athletics. So you can go ahead and follow them on all your favorite social medias at RK Athletics 1. They do personal training in-house in the Edmonton, Alberta area. They also do virtual pro training everywhere else via Zoom and stuff like that. Please check them out. Also, while we're doing some plugs, we'll get another plug out of the way. Rich King is also part of this.
Changing the game.
Yes, but I have to get to the right portion to get the asset.
Did you notice that I said that in the way of Saving the Day, the song from Ghostbusters?
I did not.
Yeah.
But however, we have changed the game, which is going to take place from the Rec Room. It's this upcoming Saturday, I believe, the 15th.
Next Saturday. 1 week from today.
1 week from today. And you can see all kinds of fun people there. You can see Chris Parrish there live and in person. And if you can't be there in person in Edmonton, that's fine. Join me and some of our other friends from Love Wrestling in the chat at twitch.tv/lovewrestling. Now, just so you know, everybody can watch for free. However, that being said, if you want to chat with the rest of the Love Wrestling community in the chat, you have to be subscribed. So go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe on Twitch, and go ahead and join us for Change the Game. Change the Game is going to be a fun show. It looks like an interesting show. I haven't heard of most of these people, so I'm excited to see them for the first time.
Yeah, so it's a contusion of a lot of Canadian talent. And yes, I said contusion because why not? So it's going to be absolutely interesting. Over my career, I've met most of these people. There are a few that I have not.
Sunday brunch will be tomorrow, but it's Sunday. But yes. Hello, Dara. Wonderful to join us.
I mean, yeah, she's going to be fun today, Saturday, that we're experiencing. Dara, thank you. Sorry. Oh, you need coffee. You need coffee.
I need coffee. Did I miss a day or something? I don't remember. Now I'm confused. Did I miss a day? Where's Spencer? Why am I not Spencer Love, apparently?
Oh, jeez. Well, if you're Spencer Love, then I'd definitely be showcasing this, as today marks the 83rd day, by the way, of your Love Wrestling Elite Championship, which marks the day as now the longest reigning Elite Champion is me. So if you were Spencer, I'd be rubbing that in, but you're not. So I will not rub it in at all. But yeah, no, a conglomerate of a lot of Canadian talent for changing the game, whether it's Michael Richard Blaze, whether it's Leo London, whether it's Mitch Clark,
Nicole Matthews, Kayla J.
Yeah, just Zoe Hager, Taryn from accounting, Rich King, our sponsor, as you said. Just a nice plethora of talent, even Ravenous Randy Myers. Like, it's just going to be absolutely fantastic of a show. Make sure you check it out. You can always check it out on our Twitch if you cannot be there in person. However, if you are able to be there in person, please check it out, because it's a show you don't want to miss. It's a show we're all talking about. And let's face it, being there live always trumps watching it on TV. So if you can get there live, like our good friend Zach is going to be there live. He's going to be out here in the Edmonton area checking us out. So make sure, if you can, check it out. But also be safe. We still have the COVID restrictions. So make sure you're wearing a mask. Make sure you're showing proof of vaccination and all that stuff if you want to attend.
Absolutely. But going back a week, because I know this is normally the week that we talk about things that happened this week, but we're going to go back a little bit because I don't think any of our shows have addressed this. The WWE draft is finally complete. We have an official roster of different people who were drafted. And I want to go over both shows and talk to you about what you think of each show. So we're going to start with Raw. And we have our male talent of Raw because this is how the list that I have is broken down. So we have Big E, Randy Orton, Matt Riddle, Edge, Keith Lee, Rey Mysterio, Dominic Mysterio, Austin Theory, Bobby Lashley, Seth Rollins, Damian Priest, AJ Styles, Omos, Kevin Owens, Montez Ford, Angelo Dawkins, Finn Balor, Karrion Kross, Gable Steveson, Drake Maverick, Reggie, Akira Tozawa, Chad Gable, Otis, R-Truth, John Morrison, T-Bar, Apollo Crews, Commander Aziz, Dolph Ziggler, Robert Roode, Jackson Riker, Veer, Shelton Benjamin, Cedric Alexander, and The Miz.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a different mixed with what they had. There's definitely the staples, whether it's RK Bro, AJ Omos, Big E, who is the new staple as he's the champion. But it also creates opportunity. Like, I'm very curious to see if we're going to get that eventual Keith Lee versus Big E matchup that I think isn't inevitable. But I mean, with that being said, like, there's so many opportunities for Edge to work with new talent that he's never worked. Like, imagine like Edge versus AJ one-on-one. Imagine Edge versus Matt Riddle one-on-one. Edge versus Finn Balor would be very good. Edge even versus Bearcat Keith Lee. Yeah, I said Bearcat, people. Get off the name. He's honoring someone from the past. Get over it. It's new. Oh, you must hate it, right? But whatever. It's like even Big E against Edge. Like, there's a lot of good opportunities. And here's another thing. An old but classic, AJ Styles versus Finn Balor. Sign me up for that one. And we also have Seth Rollins on the show.
But I mean, yeah, those are all great, but I know you're a tag team guy. I just want to point out some of these great things.
Yeah.
We have the Hurt Business back together as a tag team with Shelton Benjamin and Cedric Alexander. We have Robert Roode and Dolph Ziggler, the Dirty Dogs. Apollo Crews and Commander Aziz. AJ and Omos. Riddle and Orton. We also have, I'm trying to see.
American Alpha. Alpha Academy, yeah.
We also have the Street Profits. Like, that's a stacked tag division on top of Rey and Dominic Mysterio, too.
Yeah, I can't wait to see how many single stars get broken up into this. I mean, at the end of the day, like, that's the thing. Like, a tag division in WWE, like, I love tag wrestling. It's a lost art, I believe, in televised TV. But at the end of the day, like, if they're going to stay true to this division, like, this is a great division. Like, and I can't wait to see the evolution of Rated RKO. They're just more entertaining as weeks go. Yeah. But then also, like, giving Chad Gable and Otis an opportunity to really shine. Like, imagine Otis and Riddle in some backstage segments could be very funny. And then you see the wizardry of ring work between Chad Gable and Randy Orton would be fantastic. And that's not taking away what the other two can. They're just very entertaining, and it overshines sometimes what they can do in the ring. But then you have the Street Profits and Montez Ford, who's just a natural up-and-coming star in the making. So it's going to be interesting. Hopefully they just give all these talents time to marinate on the roster. Because if they don't, then we're going to be very upset with Raw for another year.
And then looking forward is continuing on the same brand, we have the women's roster, which is 14 women deep, which is nice. And we've got Bianca Belair, Rhea Ripley, Nikki ASH, Becky Lynch, Alexa Bliss, Carmella, Nia Jax, Zelina Vega, Doudrop, Dana Brooke, Liv Morgan, Mia Yim, Tamina, and Tegan Nox.
Yeah, as we're about to get rated from Cody, not on Twitch, but yeah. He's here to stay. I think he woke up, probably ate his cereal, so he's good, and we can add him in.
I'm just waiting for him to make sure he's ready.
Yeah, whatever.
I don't want to add him before he's ready.
Come on, it's funny.
As long as I don't forget to unmute myself, we're good.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very curious on the opportunity for Mia Yim. Because she's someone that we haven't seen a lot of lately. situations are what they are. But
creative. It's been rumored that they've been just waiting for a creative story.
Yeah, but I mean, this lies a huge opportunity. I think her and Carmella are, poised to really get their own true run at some point. This could be one of those feuds that we're looking at and be like, whoa, I didn't expect this, but I'm very happy it's there, kind of a thing. I just hope Corey Graves can keep it in his pants on commentary every time Carmella's out there, because holy crap, when he gets too over the line, it's just like me. It's like, shut the F up. Cody.
Yeah, I was going to say, Cody, I don't know how much you heard, but we were going over the Raw roster for both the men and the women with the draft. Do you need me to give you a quick rundown?
I was listening a little bit there. I had it up. I don't know what I ended up doing with the tag team stuff. I thought I had the list ready on that, but apparently I lost it somewhere along the lines. But I do have the women's stuff, so that kind of fits with where we are right now anyhow.
Yeah.
Definitely excited to see Mia get her opportunity. Really would like to see Liv and Doudrop get a lot of push there. I've thought it every time with Dana when she gets drafted that this is the time we might see a push for Dana Brooke. I think we might see a little bit of a push at least for her with what happened with the comments with Corey this past week on about what she's doing, that might be something to give her a chip on her shoulder and play a little bit off that story-wise. The one that really stood out for me for Raw, though, was the split of Tegan and Shotzi, and Raw getting Tegan Knox. That I have two ways that I see this possibly going. Is either we get a push for Tegan here and actually get to see singles Tegan going far, or this is where they bring Dakota Kai in, that maybe she's not drafted, but they bring Dakota, and it wouldn't be unlike WWE to pretend like Tegan and Dakota's feud in NXT is something that didn't matter and bring back Team Kick and let them be the next tag challengers for Rhea and Nikki.
There you go.
I have a question for you guys. In the last, I'll say 5-6 years, we haven't really seen a lot of true tag teams when it comes to the women's side of it. We talked about Rhea and Nikki ASH, the current Raw women's tag team champions. If they were to bring Team Kick back, do you see them as potentially kind of that new, I don't want to say they're like the Iconics, but in the sense that they're the only true tag team in the female division and they're kind of that new age kind of group? Or do you think that we'll just see two single stars if that's the case, or we'll just see if Tegan Knox can do what Toni Storm is trying to do on SmackDown?
I wouldn't be surprised if we see these titles dropped. Based on the fact that they broke up both Natalya and Tamina and Tegan and Shotzi, I wouldn't be surprised if these titles get dropped altogether.
I would like to see them just give up on the tag division and go to a secondary women's title, but with AEW doing that exact thing this week, well, not so much deleting the tag titles, just not having them to begin with and going with the secondary. I don't know if we'll see WWE go to a secondary women's title with them doing it, because it might look a little bit too much like copycatting at this point.
No, I agree.
Yeah, I would only do a singles women's title if we're going something bigger and giving them their own brand, and then we can combine the Raw and SmackDown into one main, and then you can actually go from there. But I mean, I'm like you, like it really doesn't seem like they're putting a lot of emphasis on on this title, and that's where the perception of it's like, I don't care as much because it doesn't seem like you did care.
Yeah. And now moving on to SmackDown, because we've done the Raw side. On the men's side for SmackDown, and this is where I believe we truly get into the AA show, when we get to the men's and women's divisions on SmackDown. We've got Roman Reigns, Drew McIntyre, Kofi Kingston, Xavier Woods, Happy Corbin, Madcap Moss, Isaiah Swerve Scott, Top Dollar, Ashante Adonis, Jeff Hardy, Jimmy Uso, Jey Uso, King Nakamura, Rick Boogs, Sheamus, Eric.
Correction. He is no longer King Nakamura.
Did I miss something on SmackDown?
Yeah, he gave up his crown as the King of the Ring tournament is going in. He's no longer going by the name King Nakamura.
Oh, okay. So we're back to Shinsuke.
He said, you can just call me Intercontinental Champion Nakamura. But I think, Shinsuke Nakamura is going to be back.
Rick Boog, Sheamus, Eric Ivar, Ricochet, Humberto Carrillo, Angel Garza, Cesaro, Ridge Holland, Sami Zayn, Drew Gulak, Mace, Mustafa Ali, Mansoor, Jinder Mahal, and Shanky. We got our friend Alex in the comments saying hello to me and Cody and to Paris.
Well, I was gonna say we just finished up with the Raw Women's Division, but hey, Alex, nice to see you on the chat.
Speaking of Alex, we want to say something nice about Alex. Alex has his second episode of Love Wrestling Figures out on the YouTube channel, so go ahead and check that out to see him unboxing Vader this week. It was actually a really good episode. I really enjoyed it.
If it doesn't come with the Corey Matthews and Topanga, I'm mad.
It doesn't, but it does come out that cool black horn helmet that he wore to New Japan that one time.
Like the Mastodon gimmick?
Yeah, the Mastodon. But speaking of tag teams and speaking of SmackDown, we've got Hit Row, the New Day.
Oh, you got to say that with a little bit more conviction, Ed.
Well, I'm still worried about them, but I'll go with it. Hit Row.
There you go. That was good.
So we've got Hit Row, the New Day, the Usos, Rick Boogs and Nakamura, the War Raiders, Carrillo and Garza, Mansoor and Ali, and Jinder Mahal and Shanky. That's a pretty decent SmackDown tag division as well.
We're also forgetting the potential reuniting Bar, because Sheamus and Cesaro. Oh, I was actually doing it right. There you go. Cody's like, I regret coming on this. Debonair. Oh, I thought I wrote Donair, and I was like, ooh, that sounds good, actually.
We do like donuts on this show.
No, Donair. Oh, my God. Oh.
That must be a Canadian thing.
Shout out to Simply's in St. Albert. You're the best. Sponsor me. No, Cody, I know you probably want to say something on this, but I just want to say, the tag division on here seems like it's going to be fast-paced, and I really like that. I think there's going to be a lot more tag wrestling on SmackDown than on Raw. I hope I'm wrong. I hope it's wow. But with that, I don't know. I'm thinking of the possible matches you can have between the Usos, Mansoor, and Ali, which are absolutely going to be just a banger. But then you got New Day against, potentially Garza and Carrillo, which it's I'm very high on these two young tag teams. And then you mixed with, I think, the two best tag teams in WWE, the New Day and Usos. And then on top of that, you got the addition of Hit Row. And it's just man, it's going to be a lot of fun to watch SmackDown, especially if you can get New Day, Hit Row, Bloodline all intertwined together. It's going to be fun to watch SmackDown. They got stronger, even though they had the best show in wrestling today.
Mm-hmm.
Boom. Yeah. Hot take, people.
Absolutely. That's tag team division right off the bat just looked stacked. You've got the obvious pairing of the Usos and the New Day, who are the top two tag teams in WWE for the last decade, probably. But then you add in Hit Row and the Viking Raiders, who are two of probably the hotter teams to come out of NXT. And then you've got Ali and Mansoor and Garza and Carrillo, who are real-life cousins and just have natural chemistry to them. As two of the teams kind of thrown together on the main roster now, but have both looked really good in what they've done so far. So that right there, you're looking at 6-7 tag teams that could run that division really, really easily. If we do get a reuniting of the Bar as well, I mean, they were also one of the top tag teams in the division for quite some time. So plenty of potential there for the tag team division on SmackDown.
I was just gonna say, especially if Cesaro, now that we saw SmackDown and he didn't advance in the King of the Ring, I can now question whether what his quest is on singles, because I don't see him going after the Intercontinental Championship right away. So I don't know. The seeds could be planted there, but I mean, also we're not talking about the potential Sheamus becoming Intercontinental Champion, the one title he has not really gotten. So I don't know. SmackDown to me is very exciting.
Yeah.
And I like this. It's another reason to look forward to Fridays in my world.
And we've still got more greatness coming from SmackDown, because then we get to the SmackDown Women's Division. And it's headed up with Charlotte Flair, B-Fab, Naomi, Sasha Banks, Shayna Baszler, Xia Li, Aaliyah, Toni Storm, Shotzi Blackheart, Natalya. This is a very great roster in my mind, because it's a lot of young, green, newer learning talent with some of the best female wrestlers in WWE. And more importantly, some of the best teaching wrestlers in WWE.
And that's why I don't disagree with the splitting up of Natalya and Tamina, because it's more of a, hey, we know what you can do for other people, and we need that spread out. Also, we're not talking about a Bayley, who's probably one of the best complete performers in WWE, because she's injured, therefore she's a free agent. So it's interesting to see where she's going to end up on. But I would love to see Shotzi versus Sasha Banks. And I'm not even the biggest individual fans of them, but I think they have a dynamic that would be really fun to watch. I also want to see the promos between B-Fab and Charlotte, because I think they're just going to spit fire for however long they have the mic in their hands. So it's very, if you want to give the women on SmackDown an edge, I'm for this 100%.
Yeah.
Cody, what about you?
I don't know. The women's division here doesn't strike me as strong as what Raw got. There's a lot of names that jump out at me, but none of them really stand on that level of what they've built Charlotte to be. And I think this might be one of Charlotte's longer title reigns now, because other than Sasha and maybe Shayna, I don't see anybody on that roster who really should be taking the title off of Charlotte anytime soon. Which I'm very critical of Charlotte Flair. I hate what they've done with her. I hate how they're shoving her down our throats nonstop, title after title after title after title. Really just expanding that number of reigns for her to try and catch her father. I don't want her to be champion for a long time, but I would rather her be champion for a long time than her drop it and win it back every 3 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, I can entirely see your point that you have Charlotte Flair, Sasha Banks, and then there's a gap. Because Shayna, as great as Shayna is, the way that she's been portrayed on the main roster, there's a gap between her and Sasha. I think in the ring, there's no gap. On the mic, there's no gap. The way they've been portrayed on television, there's a gap.
Yeah,
but
I think the two names that really jump out here are Shayna Baszler and Xia Li. Yeah. And it's because Shayna Baszler has really, since breaking away from Nia Jax, they've started really portraying Shayna the way she deserves to be portrayed, as a badass and as somebody who can just come in and destroy anybody. And Xia Li, right off the bat, with that intro package she got during the draft, they made her feel important. And if they do right by her, they can push her to the moon on the WWE roster, and Xia Li will own it.
Now, Cody, you joined me on NXT for a lot, so there's a bunch of these names we've seen. Do you feel like we heard Paris talking about how Charlotte and B-Fab on the mic is going to be fun. I'm worried about B-Fab if she has to get in the ring on this SmackDown, being completely out of her element. What about you?
Yeah, I definitely didn't think B-Fab's ready for the in-ring action on the call, but absolutely, as a valet manager for the Hit Row group, she can hold her own on a microphone against anybody. You give me Hit Row against the Bloodline, I think all four, Swerve, Ashanti, Top Dollar, B-Fab, can hold their own against Roman, the Usos, and Naomi, which is saying a lot because those are four amazing talents in the ring and on the mic. I think B-Fab is definitely a weaker member of this women's division, but getting the chance to work with talents like Natalya is a great opportunity for her to learn and grow. And I think that might be the perfect place to start her if we end up with B-Fab getting in the ring, is get her in the ring with a Natalya and let Natalya work and, work a couple match feud with her and just really help her grow that in ring. Because there's nobody else on this roster I would think is prepared and excellent at training new talent like Natalya.
And I think that it's important to note that there's 3 names, and we brought up one of them before, and I'm going to bring up the rest of them now. There are 3 names that are missing that I think 2 of which are going to end up on this SmackDown roster before it's all said and done. We brought up Bayley. Let's also bring up Asuka, who was undrafted because of the fact that she's still out with her injury. But more importantly, I mean, it's obvious the way that they're telling the story on SmackDown. Naomi versus Sonya Deville is coming soon. And I'm very excited to see the return of Sonya Deville back to the ring, where she ends up on this SmackDown in a division where, like you said, there's a lot of room for somebody like Xia Li, for Shayna Baszler, for Naomi, for Sonya Deville to really get that chance to explore how good they are and get pushed. Because other than Charlotte and Sasha, which you can put in their own story and move it off to the side, there's plenty of room for all of them to be title contenders.
Yeah.
Yeah, one thing I think I just wanted to also dovetail off Cody's point is with like the Xia Li and Shayna Baszler, we're getting a completely fresh slate with these two, especially with Shotzi and Tegan as well. They're now given like a kind of a fresh start in the sense of what they can do, and sometimes that's really refreshing for a performer in those scenarios, because you almost get stuck into doing the same thing all the time, and now you're kind of like where do I go? Or okay, now I can go in this direction. And I really feel like we got some big names in the free agency, as you said, like Asuka and Bayley, and it's almost like we all know Bayley's going to be out a lot longer than Asuka. I have a feeling we might see Asuka back at the Rumble, just because we are in October. It's only a few months away. WWE likes to add those surprises, and who doesn't like a good Rumble pop? But I also feel like these girls are going to get put onto whatever brand really needs it the most, because these are X Factor talents right now that you have. And it's really interesting to see, if SmackDown's really struggling in the female division and Asuka's ready, we might see Asuka put on SmackDown. However, if they need to find somebody for a Becky Lynch, then maybe they put Asuka in that scenario, because we never really got that true conclusion to a Becky versus Asuka story, because Becky got pregnant and had to give up the title, and she gave it up to Asuka. So there's still a lot of open ends, which is great. But when we talk about like BFAB not being ready, this is why it's very important that you have those people like a Tamina and Natalya there to help them guide the way. Because at one point, girls like Carmella weren't ready, and then now she's holding her own in the ring. We even saw like Dana Brooke at one point, be very tentative in the ring, and now she's a lot more confident than she's ever been. And the one person I'm actually more worried about on the SmackDown roster of being exposed is Aaliyah, because there's absolutely no reason for her to be up there, and it's just it's like she's a little fish in a pond, in a big ocean right now, and I think she's trying to find Nemo, and that's kind of like my thing. It's pretty much like where she's planning. She just doesn't have a pedigree like a Gable Stevenson on Raw, who's going to be a lot more well-rounded and protected on Raw than she is. And that's what's concerning to me about Aaliyah, rather than BFAB, because at least she has Hit Row on her end to kind of help her swim.
Yeah, Aaliyah is somebody she never ever connected with me in the NXT scene. She was there, what was it, almost like 9 years, I think they said, or something, that she
was there. I was just saying, she was there on Breaking Ground. And that was when Sasha and Bayley were still in NXT.
So she's been through the Performance Center and the NXT system for so long. You really would expect somebody that spent that much time in development to have developed, and she just never felt like it to me. All the way up until we last saw her in the Robert Stone brand, she always just felt like the same Aaliyah. I think the spot that I thought fit her best was when she was teaming with Vanessa Bourne, but that just kind of went away and disappeared on its own again. That's kind of been the thing with Aaliyah, is every time she starts getting any kind of traction, whatever she's doing has just disappeared, and then she comes back and she's still the same Aaliyah. I'd like to see her find a foothold on SmackDown and actually become something, since they've invested so much time and resources into her. Until it happens, I don't see it.
I'm It's very weird because I saw so much potential in Vanessa Bourne that I thought they would let the wrong one go, to be honest. And this isn't a shot against Aaliyah because I'm always all for Canadian talent. But with that being said, it just seems like the progression was never there, and I'm like, I saw a lot. No offense to Aaliyah, but I saw a lot better talent get let go for a lot less reasons. And it was just really hard to watch because you're just kind of like, why is she still there? And I don't mean this as like a shot against her, but with that being said, it's like, there's, I don't know, I'm just very confused with her because I thought Vanessa Bourne, like the mix with her and Sasha, I saw that from day one. And I'm like, those are personalities that I would like to see mesh. But with Aaliyah, I'm having a hard time penciling her in an area at all, to be honest.
Yeah.
And moving on a little bit from the
they're here.
Yeah. Moving on a little bit from the draft, we're going to move up to something coming up, and that is October, I think the 21st. Yes, October 21st. We have Crown Jewel. We're not going to take a lot of time because Saudi and all the terrible things that happen in Saudi. But this card needs mentioning because so far it's absolutely fantastic. Cody will be joining us again in just a moment.
And before we get to Crown Jewel, can I ask you two questions about this draft? Whether is there anybody from NXT you're surprised that didn't get drafted? And who do you think was a steal of this draft? Because we always look at drafts and be like, oh my God, like this was like the best pick. Who do you think is that person? Because that's what I love about drafts. But from the NXT side, I know you and Cody both cover NXT. Like, who's someone that you're just like, wow, I thought they were for sure going up?
Dakota Kai, Pete Dunne, and Io Shirai are my three. And I'm sure those are probably the same three Cody would have given if I had let him answer first. But those three seemed like no-brainers. One of them hasn't been on TV since she lost her title match. So it figured that she was coming up, and then Xia Li went up instead, which is fine because I'm excited for Xia Li. Because I think, to answer your second question as well, I think Xia Li's the steal of the draft. She's ultra talented, and if they push her properly on a brand like SmackDown, she could do some great things there. On top of the fact that she's marketable because she's the first WWE superstar from China.
Yeah, those three you listed, and the other one that really stood out to me as someone that I thought was probably getting called up was Kyle O'Reilly.
I'm surprised none of you said LA Knight, by the way. Because he was one I thought, like, just from a personality standpoint, this guy was a raw guy, 100%. But
I think we're going to see him in the Rumble, and then he'll end up on the main roster shortly afterwards.
Yeah. I think that LA Knight is someone I wouldn't have been surprised if he got called up, but I'm also not surprised he didn't get called up. Either way, it wouldn't have been a surprise with him, so that's why I didn't give him.
Yeah. And I also said the steal a draft because I do like, and I know, Ed, you're from the area that this guy is in. We saw a lot of evolution just in NXT from the day he debuted till now. But I think getting Isaiah Swerve Scott on the main roster in a comfortable role, that guy's going to flourish, especially if you put him with the right guys that they seem to have on SmackDown. I honestly believe in 5 years, this guy is a marquee match at WrestleMania. And I say 5 years because you got to let this thing develop. But I think this guy is one of the brightest stars moving up. And I really think Austin Theory is another one that nobody's talking about, but I'm excited.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Swerve is a steal and a half. I think he's got all the talent in the world. He can talk the talk. He can walk the walk. He's got the look. I don't know if his ceiling is a world title at this point. Just given his size, I don't know if that's where WWE would see him. But he's somebody who could run that Intercontinental division for a long time. Putting him in matches with guys like Happy Corbin, like Sheamus, like Nakamura, like Sami Zayn. Swerve against any of those guys is a top of the card match to me. even putting him in matches with some of the other guys on there, like the Usos, like the McIntyres, like the Kofis and the Reigns and guys like that, he can absolutely hold his own. I just don't know if having the Universal title or World title on him is something that I can see happening.
I never said world title. I said marquee match.
Yep.
So, but I mean, it's also hard to say because at one point I would say the same thing about Kofi Kingston.
Yeah.
But sorry, I just wanted to talk about that, Ed. So
yeah, no, I was just say the thing with Hit Row is all dependent on how much crime time is infused into their character now that they're on the main roster. In NXT, Swerve Scott was a world champion in the making because Hit Row was taken as an authentic gimmick that they were able to put together and push through. We've seen the first vignette where they're still the same thing. We heard them talk and they're the same thing. I'm interested to see in 6 months from now, are they still Hit Row or are they more crime time?
One thing I also want to point out is Hit Row went to SmackDown and not Raw. And yes, we know this. It's like, yeah, Parrish, no, you know what? But I'm saying, you know who has a very heavy influence on the writing and creative aspect of SmackDown? It's Paul Heyman. Yeah. And Paul Heyman being there, understanding what Hit Row is and what they can do, I think is very crucial to the evolution of how Hit Row not only becomes a main roster group, but also flourishes as one. Therefore, Vince McMahon will be perceived to see what their potential is and reaching out. I think it was very well executed by keeping Paul Heyman around a group that needed this direction on the main roster.
Just want to say hello to our friend Tom Colley, who starts to say the exact same thing we've all been talking about. The Swerve versus Nakamura would be a dream. I think we see that within the next 6 months, by the way.
Yeah.
Swerve versus Nakamura for the IC title at a pay-per-view, I think, is a match we see in the next 6 months.
I think Swerve is the guy that Knox should drop the title to, honestly.
I'm still hoping for Sheamus on that one just because I think it would be great to see Sheamus have that Grand Slam.
I think Sheamus deserves an Intercontinental Championship win at WrestleMania.
There we go. Have Swerve win it at Rumble and then have Sheamus win it there.
I mean, I just think when we talk about Sheamus, I think this is one of these talents that we just don't like. I think we're learning to appreciate him a lot more than we did. But it's like what we're doing with Cesaro. Like, man, Sheamus is one of the best, like through and through. We talk about I talk about Orton as being one of the best in ring. Man, Sheamus is right up there for me. It's like if we talk about like who the best is, like I'm always surprised that nobody really talks more about Sheamus. I think this guy is an absolute stud in every realm of the water. And we're talking about Xia Li being, the first ever Chinese guy. Like he was the first ever Irish world champion, and like that doesn't get talked enough about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Two other things on SmackDown that I wanted to bring up too. The biggest surprise of SmackDown's draft for me, coming from NXT, is Ridge Holland. That one really stood out. Ridge Holland, he was somebody I didn't expect to go up. He was somebody I thought was still on his way to an NXT title reign. Did not see that one coming, but he is an excellent talent since he came back from injury. He's got his gimmick really, really down pat. I'm looking forward to seeing what he does on that roster. And then the other thing is the tease on Monday night from Jeff Hardy. If we're getting either the Brother Nero or the Willow characters from TNA, as he's teasing we might see on the SmackDown change, I'm all for it. I think Jeff has been Jeff in WWE for so long. I'm looking forward to seeing a different version of him.
Mm-hmm. I wouldn't be surprised if we see it. I mean, hell, Itchweed. To go further into the Jeff Hardy mythos, for those who don't know, it's a completely other character where Jeff Hardy talks 6 million miles an hour.
Yeah,
and is very interesting.
So many things I can say, but I'm not going to go there because But with that being said, like I really want to see Demon against Willow. Like that'd be just from a standpoint, like even though we don't have the Fiend anymore, we don't have any of that paranormal. This is still one that like still would interest me. Yeah, and we talk about like Ridge Holland. I would love to see him being the heater to Sami Zayn. I would love to even see him with Elias when he comes back. Or I would love to see Ridge Holland just flat out be the dominant force that we know he can be. But with that being said, like, I think this guy is going to put a stamp on if he's used right. And I'm very curious on, what they do with him as an individual now, because we haven't really seen much of him on his own.
Let me throw this out here.
Go ahead.
What if instead of seeing Ridge on his own, what if they give us Ridge and Sheamus or Ridge and Cesaro as a tag team? Or
That'd
all
be great.
three of them together as a trio?
I was going to say with my thought on Ridge is I was thinking, how long is it going to be? And I'm thinking in a matter of weeks before we see Drew McIntyre versus Ridge Holland.
I know too, there's been a past, and I believe it was Mojo Rawley who said in an interview that there were plans for WWE to bring back the League of Nations. What happens if they go kind of League of Nation 2.0 by having Cesaro, Sheamus, Ridge Holland as kind of the catalyst of that group? I wouldn't be against it. I just hope it's not a copycat and it's something different and new. But I have time for that group as well, because if we're going to have Hit Row, we're going to have Bloodline. It almost seems SmackDown can be leading in to a Chris Parrish Raw faction-driven show.
Yeah. I mean, go something almost a little bit between Dunn & Co. and League of Nations with the Ridge Holland group like that. Not quite all the way to the Dunn, Holland, and Lorcan and Birch kind of thing, but also not quite to the Wade Barrett League of Nations, just somewhere straddling the middle there.
Yeah.
And as we go forward, I'm going to try to get to Crown Jewel real quick because it is coming up soon. And although we don't like to talk about where it happens and all the terrible things that happen there, this card is worth talking about. This show is going to be worth watching for, as the multitude of bad things we shouldn't watch this show for. We're headlined with Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar. We then have Becky Lynch versus Bianca Belair versus Sasha Banks for the SmackDown Women's Championship. RK Bro versus AJ and Almas. We have Big E and Drew McIntyre. Goldberg and Bobby Lashley in a no-holds-barred match. We have the finals of both the King of the Ring and the Queen's Crown. And as we found out last night, Edge versus Seth Rollins inside Hell in a Cell. This is a fantastic thing. But before we get to our thoughts on that, Parrish, do you want to...
I mean, I think he put on glasses today. You can clearly see that I'm here. I don't know what to say to that other than, yes, I am.
So, Cody, what are your thoughts on the Saudi show in the, like, we'll just talk about the matches. This whole card, this exact same card is taking place in Beijing, China.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on this card?
I think they're putting this card together to try to almost force the hand of the people who want to reject the Saudi show. They are putting on an absolutely stacked card, making it near impossible to not want to watch this card. It's all matches I want to see, but it's also on a card that I don't want to watch. So it's, maybe I'll catch the highlights after the fact. I'm not sure, but it is what it is with, Roman and Brock. We've seen it before. It's the current iterations of their characters is something that's going to be new and fun. And the Heyman shenanigans has been great all through this feud. This match is going to kill. It's going to rock the show. Becky, Bianca, and Sasha, absolutely three of the top women on the card. I was just looking recently at the last month or so of women's action. Bianca is the only woman on the roster who has put in more than one 13-minute match in the last month of WWE. So she is being pushed to the moon. She is killing it. She is rocking it. She deserves to take that title back off of Becky. I'm not sure if it's going to happen, but I want to see it happen. And then the Hell in a Cell match, like, where do you even put that on that stack card? Is that a main event? Is that somewhere mid-card? Is that the opener? I can't imagine a Hell in a Cell opening a card like that with a match between Edge and Rollins, but that might be what we're looking at, because I don't know where else you put them.
Absolutely. Parrish.
Yeah, I think. Well, I mean, the Hell in a Cell match, I definitely think, like, with the set that's this show's gonna have, I mean, you can really put it wherever you want. I mean, it's not like Taker and Shane was the main event to WrestleMania, but it's really interesting because to me, I look at simple like Edge and Rollins, Lesnar, and Reigns. They're easily the two best storied matches on this. When it comes to like investing storylines standpoint, they're the two best in my opinion. I thought they did a really good job on SmackDown last night, making me care about the Bianca Belair, Sasha Banks, Becky match. I thought that was one of the better segments on SmackDown. And I thought even Becky showed a lot more growth than you thought. I also really liked how strong Bianca looked. And because of that, I have a tendency to believe that Sasha Banks is walking out with the title there. But it's to me, it's very confusing from a scene of if Charlotte's going to be on SmackDown and she's the champion, how is that Raw title turning into the SmackDown and vice versa? The only plausible way is that either Bianca or Becky win the title and they do a little flip, which I hate. I think that's the stupidest thing that you have in sport. I thought really last year when was it last year where we saw the Profits and the Usos or New Day, they kind of just handed the titles to each other and be like, here you go. And I'm just like, this is why like you should just have one set of tag titles. But I don't know.
Not to cut you off there, Parrish, but I was thinking about this after the draft, that I think it would make a lot more sense if your champions are just protected as from the draft. Keep your champions on your shows. You don't draft champions and draft around them.
Yeah, but also this is why you keep the money in the bank when are available through a draft. Because I loved the fact that we thought at one point Raw didn't have a heavyweight champion. Edge gets beaten up by Batista. Punk comes in and gets the title, brings it back. Like, yeah, that's where a transitional champion makes sense. But I don't know. To me, it's confusion that I just don't understand. I hope they do something with it. Other than that, I'm very curious on Lesnar Reigns just because of I now believe that Roman Reigns is not dropping the title, as maybe you asked me a few weeks ago whether or not I think Brock was going to win the title, knowing that we still had Demon and Reigns. I thought, this would be a time to. Now I don't, unless we're seeing Brock Lesnar win the title because Paul Heyman turns on Roman Reigns. That could be a thing, but I just don't know. It's Crown Jewel. It's a different show than normal. They tend to treat it like it's a third coming to SummerSlam, WrestleMania, almost. So, I mean, Goldberg won the title. Did Goldberg win the title at Saudi Arabia?
No.
Or no. The Fiend beat Seth Rollins in Saudi Arabia for the Universal title. So I mean, we've seen title changes before there. So I don't know. Like it's gonna be a good show. People don't have to like the Saudi Arabia thing. I think it's stupid that the King of the Ring and the Queen of the Turn are whatever they want. I'm saying Queen of the Ring because that's a stupid ass name, and Queen of the Ring just sounds better.
It's trademarked.
Yeah, well, it's stupid.
Talk to Alex. She trademarked it.
I mean, Alex, you can trademark stupid. Why don't you do that too? But with that being said, it's I don't know. I just think it's stupid that you have one of the most North American populated tournaments. Like this is one of the most enjoyed tournaments in Canadian fans, United States fans, and you're doing the finals of it somewhere else and nobody gets to see it. Like that's a missed opportunity. At least do it in England if you're not going to do it in North America.
Like I said, they're really, really trying to force your hand on it. They know people don't want to buy this pay-per-view, so they're trying to make it impossible to not buy it. They really, really want to force people's hands, and they don't understand that people are more adamant about not watching a show in a place they don't support than about watching matches they'd really want to see.
Well, my thing is Saudi Arabia doesn't do well with royalty in general, so why the hell are you doing this?
And speaking of those two things, that's what I wanted to talk about when it comes to this show. You know, you guys have touched on a lot of the other matches, but for me, it's these finals matches. Because one, I think WWE, when putting together the King of the Ring, forgot that one of these guys isn't allowed in the country. We'll be honest. I think they forgot Sami Zayn's not allowed inside Saudi Arabia.
I don't know. He's not allowed. I always thought it was he refused to go.
Yeah.
I think it's because of his Syrian heritage. The company has chosen to tell him he's not allowed to go.
Yeah, I definitely think it's one of those, like, they probably don't want him there.
I don't think he wants to go either, to be perfectly honest.
No.
I think it's a little bit of all in between. I think he's, like, legally, is he allowed to go? Probably. Should he go? Probably not, because we all know that there are tensions in that part of the world, and his Syrian heritage isn't going to help him when it comes to that.
But with his whole like conspiracy angle and all that, is there not something there to where it makes so much sense for Sami? Not to mention, I'll flat out say this, I don't care about this organic thing that Xavier Woods really wants. Is there anyone more deserving of a push to the next level more than Sami Zayn right now?
Xavier Woods.
No, but like honestly, Xavier Woods, like, okay, one, I'd like to see Xavier Woods do a little bit more mid-card stuff before we're talking about that. Sami Zayn has done all this mid-card stuff. He deserves a chance to have this statement place tournament that propels him to that main event level, which is what I always thought King of the Ring did. And I would love to see it. Okay, that's fine. I'm not saying anything bad about Xavier Woods, but establish him as a singles wrestler before we're even talking about it. This is why I'm saying you don't necessarily need to break up the New Day, but they're not going to be perceived as individuals if they're always together. Like to me, Sami Zayn needs that push to that next level, or else I'm seeing him walk out of this company, because if he's not getting the reins put on his back, then why does he stay? And I think this is a gigantic missed opportunity if you don't let Sami Zayn reach that main event status and go after a world title, because he is one of the best pure minds and talents that this company has seen since Christian.
Sami Zayn is going to win and make it to the finals, and then he's going to refuse to go to the country. Shane McMahon's going to take his spot and win.
There you go. I want to bring up, agreed. It's really not a push anymore. It's not the push that it used to be.
Well, it hasn't been. We can hope that this year is going to be.
WWE can watch Love Wrestling and find out how to change the game when it comes to the perception of what's a pusher.
But speaking of this one, I want to bring this up because I think there's a way that you can have Woods lose this year and have him win it next year and it be okay.
Yeah, we don't have to have him win now. Like, whether he wins now or next year, like, what does it matter? Like, this instant gratification thing in this world is the dumbest thing. I can't stand it.
That being said, he's also put this into like even if you watched his old Twitch streams, when you watch his old Twitch streams like 4 years ago, he would talk about how he didn't care about winning anything but when his guy was in the King of the Ring and winning the King of the Ring.
Yeah.
That being said, moving on to Queen's Crown. Last night was not a good night for Queen's Crown. Can we all agree on that one?
Yeah. Before I answer that, I want to find out why you're saying this.
Because they got 3 minutes and 50 seconds of in-ring time.
Okay. And I'm going to say this. We all talk about the Attitude Era being the best, right? There's a lot like 5 minute or less matches there too.
That being said, I would debate that the Attitude Era is fondly remembered for moments that aren't most of the show. Like, if you watch an Attitude Era show, it's not fun to watch now.
No, but they did have a lot better storylines going in, and a lot of this was
It's a swerve, bro. It's a swerve.
Hey, man, like, we got to stop thinking about the short term and think more long term, though. And then that's where it's like, when we talk about, this thing has 3 minutes, it's like, okay, but does the 3 minutes matter? And that's, you know what, we say that. We saw Zelina Vega win, and 4 months ago, we're all like going down and looking at her poopy pants saying, hey, why isn't Zelina Vega winning any matches? She's on a winning streak now, and nobody's complaining.
Streak? Did she win more than one?
Well, she's won 2 in the last little while, so I mean, that's a lot more than what she was doing before.
I missed her winning the other one. Wow.
My thought on this Let me
Mhm.
jump in for a second. My thought on this: 3 minutes between two matches yesterday. Tonight we get Impact Wrestling showing their Knockouts Knockdown tournament, which is basically a Queen of the Ring of their own making.
Mhm.
I will be blown away if in the first round we see any of those matches end in 2 minutes or less.
Agreed.
Okay, but here's another thing. Impact doesn't have the bloodline. They don't have the stars that SmackDown has.
By
So,
the way,
like,
Naomi's not even in this
You've got Deonna Purrazzo headlining that card tonight.
with
You've
Masha
got,
Slamovich.
yeah,
you've got tag team titles on
it's
the
also a
line. You've got a
female-driven show.
you've got a Monsters Ball match, and you're gonna have 7 or 8 women's matches in the tournament. You're running probably 12 matches on this card tonight for Impact Wrestling. And I will be shocked if any of them runs less than 2 minutes. And that says a lot about what SmackDown did yesterday, that you're running a show that only had, 6 matches on it, I think?
Mhm.
And
Okay.
you're running a 1 minute match and a 2.5 minute match.
And then you gave Roman Reigns and Paul Heyman 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Directly after that. Directly after that. you
I'm
gave
gonna
them
say
15
this though.
minutes.
That's still some of the best minutes of SmackDown, though.
I don't disagree. I'm
If
just saying.
If it ain't good, I can understand this argument, but it was good.
I get it. And look, I'm not sitting here saying all matches need to be created equal, that all women's matches need to get 10 minutes. I'm not saying that at all. Like I love women's wrestling and I want women's wrestling to be great. That being said, you can't give women 3 minutes of time, 4 minutes of time on your television product.
Undertaker's entrance was longer than the Divas division for a month.
Yes, but that's
Nobody
the Undertaker. That's something. But like,
And that was also the Divas entrance, not when we were pushing the women's revolution.
But this is where I'm at though. If we want women to have more time, then yes, let's push for that brand, just like Mickie James was. Like I was doing a year ago, that everyone's like, it's not going to be as good as you think. But guess what? This is what the women need. If they want more time, they need their own platform. A female brand in WWE makes so much more sense than ever did before.
I would love a female, but what I'm saying is a female brand booked this way still isn't going to matter because of the fact that you can't sit here and say we're putting on a tournament to celebrate women's wrestling and then have both matches be less than 2.5 minutes.
A women's brand isn't going to succeed because people aren't going to tune in just for women's wrestling. You need to make time on your show with both genders shared equally, that in a 2-hour show, you should have more than 2 minutes of women's wrestling.
You don't even need to be equal. You just need to give them a fair amount of time. If both of these matches were 5 minutes, I'd be fine.
I'm going to say this. If you wanted a female qualifying match to go longer than 5 minutes, then maybe put a Sasha Banks versus Charlotte or two of your better.
Give it 5 minutes. I'd
Two
be
of your
happy.
better. Two of your better worker guys. Like we saw the longest match be Cesaro and Finn Balor, and that was a banger match because they're two of the best pure wrestlers. If I wanted to see a match longer than 5 minutes, I'm sorry, but I don't want Carmella and I don't want Zelina Vega and I don't want Liv Morgan right now. They're just not the top of the division. And because of that, I don't want to see them go longer than they should be going. And I'm not saying 3 minutes is what all they deserve. I agree with you guys that they should have more time. But if they need more time, then they should be absolutely killing it. And I don't think they even killed it in the 3 minutes, where I've seen other talent like a Sasha Banks kill it in 3 minutes. They got to rise their game to own that time and earn it. Jericho said it the best on that podcast with Austin. You got to make that 3 minutes the best 3 minutes of the show if you want 5 the next week.
JPJ brings this up. How can these women get to the top of the division when they're never given that time?
By making the time you have count. And they're like, you know what? That 3 minutes was the best 3 minutes on the card. Next week, we'll give you 5. Week after, we'll give you 7. Like I said, Jericho flat out said this on Steve Austin's podcast. And that's why Roman Reigns gets 15, because they believe him at 15 is better than a lot of other talents getting 5 or 3. And that's bad. That's not exactly the best, but it's what it is. Like, they got to get that trust in with management. And right now, a lot of those talents don't have the trust like Roman does to get 15 after a 3.
Honestly, give them 5 and I would be happy, Parrish.
Bingo.
Give those ladies 5 minutes each. in those matches, and that's all I need. I don't need them going longer than 5, but give them 5. NXT 2.0 right now is running basically every match other than the main event is running 5 minutes or less. We get our main events are running between 10 and 15. We get 5 minutes or less for every match on that show, and every one of those matches feels like they've got a fair amount of time and a fair amount of importance. If you gave that 5 minutes to Liv and Zelina, it was Liv and Carmella, Zelina and Tony. If you gave those 5 minutes to each of those matches, people wouldn't be talking about it as much as giving one of them a single minute. You had that match go barely a minute, and then you had another one go just over 2.
I mean, you can all say like they should get 5, but what happens if that other minute and a half isn't that good? What do we say?
That's fine. That's fine. Let them make the mistakes. Let them do it. Because on Raw, we're getting 2 more of these matches on Raw this week. We're getting Natalya and Doudrop, and we're getting Shayna Baszler and Dana Brooke. And I guarantee you that Natalya and Doudrop are getting at least 5 minutes on Raw.
Yeah,
probably 10.
But again, like we're talking, and no offense to the 4 women that wrestled on SmackDown, because I think they're all great. I think they're all up and coming. But Natalya is on a different level. Therefore, she's going to get more time slotted for her no matter who she's against. Unfortunately, we're probably going to get a squash between Dana and Shayna, and I honestly believe nobody else here would even be mad about that because that should be a squash for Shayna.
I was going to say that the reason why is because in the story you're telling, that's believable.
Yeah. And I agree with Joe there. To me, I'm more disappointed that somebody like Toni Storm didn't advance. I thought the results of those matches, that's where they messed it up more than the time.
Well, yeah, because you've got your Toni making a debut against somebody who hasn't been winning matches, and she loses in under a minute. And you've got Liv Morgan, who's been getting a push against Carmella, who's really kind of been more of that beatdown role for a little while. She's still getting the TV time and the talking time, hasn't been winning much, and she upsets Liv Morgan in 2 minutes. Like, you give somebody a push and then have them lose in 2 minutes. Nobody, how do you take somebody seriously if they're going to lose important matches in 2 minutes or less?
But I mean, and this to me goes back to me wanting less qualifying matches on Raw and SmackDown and more network specials of one night, the whole tournament through and through, like the good old days. It'd be a lot better.
All right.
Give me one night of each tournament, and I guarantee that everyone's like, holy shit, this is amazing.
All right, we're going to move on for a little bit. Agreed, Tim, I agree. At least it wasn't 26 seconds. Wasn't much more, but at least it wasn't 26 seconds.
You want that tournament of all women. Tune in tonight, Parrish.
Yes.
I'm going to steal a show tonight.
And speaking of that show, I'm just going to put over me and Cody's friend. I mean, obviously Parrish's friend too, but me and Cody's co-host on NXT, Astrid, will be live here tomorrow evening talking that with some special guests, one of which I know. I'm not going to say because she doesn't want me to, but one of which I know, and I'm very excited to see.
One of which was broken news last night on the NJPW React show.
I missed it then. Is Mel going to be on the show now?
Mel will be joining the show.
Okay. Then I know both of the hosts. I know both the co-hosts. Because there was another name being tossed around behind the scenes. But yes, it's going to be a fantastic show. Tune in tomorrow night, 8 p.m. for the Knockouts Knockdown. But Cody, I wanted to give you a little bit of time here. You've been following the G1. Me and Parrish, not so much. But I wanted you to go ahead and give us your thoughts on the G1. I'm going to pull up the brackets and I'm going to pull up the standings so that we can kind of give a little bit of information to everybody. And you're going to tell us kind of where we are in the tournament so far and what you think we're going to see going forward.
It's been a hell of a tournament. It's maybe not as flashy, maybe not as big of names, big time matchups as you would think from the last few years with some of the bigger names like Ospreay and Jay White missing. It's been a very, very interesting tournament. We've seen a lot of Bullet Club with 6 different Bullet Club members in the tournament, but there's some inner workings in the Bullet Club that I've been following that may result in a feud down the line here. A Block has basically been the Zack Sabre Jr. show for the majority of this tournament.
Kota Ibushi is up there in the runnings with him still. You've got Shingo's in the A block still holding on to a chance to win as the champion. B block is pretty much a story of two names though. As of, I haven't watched this morning's show yet, so I'm still talking after only 6 nights of both blocks. We've got Jeff Cobb and Okada are basically running away with the B block. Both are still undefeated because B block doesn't wrestle again yet. Both are undefeated through 6 matches. That we are looking at one of the most runaway blocks in G1 history, and it's going to be a very, very exciting final night there. But the A block rundown has a lot more going for it, that these next couple nights are going to be big. We've got Kenta, I think, is still in the mix as well. So we've got Zack, Shingo, Kenta, Ibushi, and I think technically Yano is still somehow alive in the point standings as well, which, you know, I don't expect Yano to win, but it's always cool to see Yano alive at the end of the bracket.
So I'm going to go ahead and give, you know, Cody's done a really good job so far, but I'm going to go ahead and give for everybody who doesn't know. In your A block, you have Kota Ibushi, Zack Sabre Jr., Kenta, Shingo Takagi, The Great Okan, Tomohiro Ishii, Toru Yano, Yujiro Takahashi, Tanga Loa, and the now withdrawn Tetsuya Naito with his knee injury. Then in the B block, you have Jeff Cobb, Kazuchika Okada, Evil, Hiroshi Tanahashi, Sanada, Taichi, Yoshihashi, Hiroki Goto, Tama Tonga, and Chase Owens.
The big thing that stood out, aside from the tops of the blocks, though, for me, Tama Tonga and Tanga Loa, Guerrillas of Destiny, have always been tag team wrestlers. They've always been one of the best tag teams in the world. Seeing them wrestling solo, though, Tama Tonga has stood out so much to me in this tournament as a guy who tells a story like nobody's business, can wrestle his ass off in the ring, and is just a well-rounded character as a whole. Tanga Loa, I'm starting to come around on. He was the weaker member for me for a lot of the start of this tournament, but he's really, really jumped ahead and caught up to his brother through the last couple shows. And then Chase Owens. Chase Owens, during the pandemic, came back to America, was locked down, won a championship at a Texas World Championship down in Texas in the States while he was there. A huge upset over Hiroshi Tanahashi in this tournament, setting him up for a potential U.S. title run in the future. But every single match Chase Owens has had in this tournament, Mel, Matt, and I on the Friday Night React show have been talking about how great he looks and how ready we are for a Chase Owens push.
Agreed. JPJ asks you a question. Didn't Chase Owens beat Tanahashi?
Yep, he did. It was his first official win of the G1, and it was a very, very big win for him, and very, very well done story of how he did it. They basically told a story of he got tips and called up Jay White in America and got tips from Jay White on how to beat Tanahashi.
So as we get close to the end of the tournament, because it looks like we have, I'm trying to find out, we have 1, 2, looks like we got about what, three or four nights each left to go.
Yeah, I think we got last night was night 7 of A block, so we've got 2 more nights of A block and then 3 nights of B block and then the finals.
All right, if you had to take a pick right now, what is your final in the G1 right now?
I've been calling throughout that I think Jeff Cobb versus Zack Sabre Jr. is the direction we're heading. I think both of those guys have been made to look extremely strong in this tournament. It wouldn't be unlike the G1 to swerve me at the end, and you know, somebody who looks like they're going to make it isn't. Cobb looks unstoppable right now, and like I said, Cobb and Okada on the final night is probably going to be for the block. And Zack Sabre Jr., every single match he's been in has been a work of art. So those are the 2 guys that I think should be in the final and who I think at this point we've got there.
And my pick is Zack Sabre Jr. versus Kazuchika Okada, because I think that would be a tremendous match. It's a match we've seen, but I still think it's one that you can finally put Zack Sabre Jr. over and on the map. And yes, JPJ, the winner of the G1 will get the title shot at Wrestle Kingdom on January 4th. I assume their title shot will be on the 4th.
It's one of the 3 nights of Wrestle Kingdom usually,
which is still fucking mind-boggling.
Whoa,
Sorry.
Ed, you just
Sorry.
took it from 1 to 1,000,000 in like 2 seconds.
It's absolutely mind-boggling that there are 3 nights of the G1 of the Wrestle Kingdom to this year. As much as I love my New Japan, that's too many nights.
You don't say.
The winner of the tournament gets the title shot, but if Shingo is the one who wins as the champion, then he gets to choose who will get the title shot. And he's teased throughout the tournament that he will be choosing Naito if that's who, or if he wins. But there's also the Ospreay Shingo story sitting hiding in the background that if we do get Shingo winning as the champion, I think that could come into play too.
Very, very interesting. Now, has anybody beaten Shingo Takagi in this tournament?
Yes, Zach and Kota Ibushi have beaten him so far. That's why he's kind of down on points right now.
No, but what I was going to say, because if I get the rules of the tournament correctly, if you beat the champion in the tournament on the road to Wrestle Kingdom, you are guaranteed a title shot.
Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure, because my New Japan rules are fuzzy because there's always something weird.
It's not always. It's ultimately up to the bookers. But usually if you beat the champion in the tournament, the bookers are going to give you a title match down the line unless you end up winning the tournament, and then you're just guaranteed the shot anyhow.
And yes, JPJ, not only is it not 3 consecutive nights, it's the 4th, the 5th, and then I think it's like the 7th or the 8th. Yes.
Yeah.
It is something crazy like that. That being said, the G1 by far is the best wrestling tournament in the world. There is no better tournament. You can talk to me about
men's wrestling tournament.
I mean, I'll argue that it's better than Stardom's tournaments, but
I've just started watching the 5-star GP, and those women. That first night, I watched 3 women's matches that were all over 17 minutes long.
I'm not debating that Stardom has amazing tournaments. I've seen this. I've seen like stuff from like the Cinderella's Balls, I think it's called, where they all dress up like fairy princesses. I think I've seen something about that. Like, I've seen a whole bunch of Japanese female tournaments, and they are absolutely fantastic, and I take nothing away from them. But the G1 is probably the most grueling and fantastic tournament to watch in all of wrestling.
The 5-star GP is their G1. It's the exact same 10 members in 2 blocks fighting until the winners of each block face off at the end and get to fight for the title afterwards. It literally is the G1 with a different name. And those women, they only have 20-minute time limits instead of 30-minute time limits. But from what I've seen so far through the first couple nights, those women do just as well as the men. It is women's wrestling that deserves to be on a platform and spotlighted, because what those Joshi women in Japan do, women in America, as far as I've seen on any of the major WWE, Impact, NWA, AEW, they don't hold a candle to the speed and the technicality that the women in Japan are wrestling with right now.
And I was going to say, whenever people are like, oh, this is the best women's division in wrestling, this is the best, I always caveat it with, this is the best women's division in wrestling, excluding Stardom.
Yeah.
Because you can't, there's no women's division in the world. WWE, NXT, AEW, nobody's women's division in the world comes close to Stardom. They are the most talented female wrestlers in the world that are unsigned by a major promotion. But even then, they're probably better than the ones that are assigned to major promotions. That being said, I want to give everybody a chance to talk about something that we haven't talked about. So, Cody, we've heard a lot from Parrish. We're going to give Parrish a chance to sit back and relax for a minute. Cody, what's something you want to talk about from this week in wrestling?
The main thing that I've been following, I guess, is Hangman.
There you go.
The casino ladder match that happened, it was a great match. Hangman showing up, I know they talked a little bit about it on Between Two Beards. I think I'm sure we'll hear more about it on Weekend Elite tomorrow. But the return of Hangman Page and all of the talk about how he was being surpassed by Christian, he was being surpassed by Bryan Danielson. He was he's been shoved to the side. His win isn't going to hit the same. I think we put all of that to rest with that casino ladder match and the reaction and the response the crowd gave to him coming back, that I think we are 100% ready to get to Hangman Page finally getting his coronation as the AEW World Champion over Kenny Omega at Full Gear.
Do you honestly? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I think it's going to hit just as hard as if he had won at All In.
All right. I was gonna say, because in my mind, I feel, and I don't think it's Daniel Bryan. I don't think it's Christian that changed my mind on it. My mind on it is that you were at the pinnacle of the story at that time, and you went another direction. I think with having the Dark Order stuff and the Elite stuff and everything that was going on there, I think you had hit your crescendo to where you should have had the moment there. And I think that's in my mind where I think it's going to hit slightly different, because if he doesn't win this now, where does he go? What does he do? Like, can they rebound? Like, the fans are going to love him either way. Like, I'm not talking Hangman's buried if he loses this world title match that he gets. I'm saying, is he a believable world championship contender again if he doesn't win this championship opportunity that he gets coming in the future?
It would take some rebuilding for sure, I think. The thing that often seems to keep getting overlooked about him missing out and that title match at All In being taken away is the story that came out that it was a lot his choice because his wife was having their child, that it just happened that the timing was off. He needed to be at home with his family, which is fair. And so they pivoted. They gave that match to Christian instead. They came up with a believable reason that, he lost in that tag match with the Dark Order and he took the pin. So Kenny Omega's like, no, I pinned you. You don't deserve a title match right now. He had to step back. He lost his ranking as the number one. And now he takes his time off, did what he needed to do in his real life, comes back and immediately inserted into that match, wins the casino chip. And he's like, hey, I'm back. I'm the number one. You can't take this one away from me. This is going to happen. I'm taking your title.
All right. I can. We had a very lengthy discussion in the Love Wrestling Slack chat last night about AEW and WWE. So I wanted to, bring some of that into this. Now, Parrish, what are your thoughts on Hangman Page? We're not talking about the Slack chat from yesterday.
No. Trust me, I'm not going to bring our Slack chat in because so many people. A lot of people will just lose it. But no, the one thing I love about Hangman is that he's a natural, organic talent that AEW has. To me, he is the guy. He's their organic story for their championship. What I definitely thought is overdone in AEW is the surprise returns, though. I'm a little tired of the surprise pops. Even though this one warranted it, I'm not going to say anything because Hangman looked like $1 million. The freaking move off Pac, off the ladder of the table, like amazing.
The dead eye. Yeah.
But I do believe that if that was your moment to close the show, I don't know if that opening match was the right thing to do. Man, that match at the beginning was amazing, like amazing, and I just don't know if I would put those on the same card if it's not like the big card. If that's a free show, wow. I don't know how invested I am into your big show if I'm just getting all that on for free. But with that being said, I watched all of my week's wrestling last night. The one thing that I got out of all of it is Kenny Omega is perceived less as a world champion out of anybody else I saw on TV. And because of that is going to dovetail to Hangman Page. And I really think that's unfair for Adam Page because Adam Page is here. So if he's winning this title, give me him and MJF right away. So the fans are absolutely booming because he needs that a-hole heel right off the bat if he's getting it. Because Adam Page is, in my opinion, the biggest star in wrestling that hasn't been there yet that the fans want to gravitate towards. And
I
I
don't know
Yeah.
if we're getting it right away, but
I was gonna say I don't think so either. It looks like
F-
MJF has other stuff going on.
MJF and Darby, when that feud is done, if MJF wins that feud, move him into that page. But I think that feud
Yeah.
with Darby should go longer.
But that's the thing. Like, you're gonna get Darby Allin and MJF while we're getting Omega and Page.
This is true.
So therefore, when those two stars are finished with those feuds, then they're aligned to go together, and that's the natural. That's my pathway for them. And then I would actually put Darby Allin against Omega right after that. To be honest,
I think Omega needs some time off at this point. I think you need to back off Omega and bring Adam up a little bit in the post.
And this is where I came up to, because while watching that match, you know who stood out to me to be a star in the in that Super Elite group? It was Adam Cole. It was not Kenny Omega. Already, Adam Cole is, by perception to me, the biggest star in that Elite. He is bigger of a star in my personal perception than the world champion.
Which I think is the direction we're heading. I think once Kenny loses the title, Kenny is getting dropped from the Super Click, and we're heading towards that feud of Kenny and Adam.
And I would have a lot of time for that. And what I'm really... I actually do like that idea of Kenny going away, because it seems AEW is doing a very good job of like having guys go away and coming back and they stay there. That's something I would have loved to see WWE do a lot more. It's just they had too many talent to where they had to push guys out more than really giving people time off. Whereas AEW is doing a better job of like allowing people to have that time off instead of just like forcing the hand. But yeah. I would love to see Adam Cole and Hangman Page. To me, that's another money feud that needs to happen at some point. I just want to see Hangman get the most out of a championship win. To me, that has to be the long-term stuff, because that guy is a diamond right now. I would love to see WWE, whenever his contract comes in, throw as much money on him as possible. I would love to see a bidding war, because that would be absolutely cool. I talked about just wait till you get that first real star going from AEW over, because it's going to happen at some point. I'd be curious to see who would be, but if WWE throws out all the money on guys, I'm curious to see if Adam Page would be one of those guys.
Interesting.
Adam Page and MJF both fit that bill.
I was going to say, I'm interested to see how much WWE's willing to throw at MJF, because I think even in the scripted development that WWE is, that MJF can still thrive in that area.
But
like,
Adam Page also checks off a lot of boxes that guys in WWE love, right? That big guy, good looking, is believable, like, and just like can kick ass right away. Has it like the only issue is everyone's going to say it's like we're going to repackage him. No, they won't.
I don't think they would repackage Adam Page. I don't think they would repackage MJF.
No.
No. My only thing with Hangman Page is, I think his title run is going to be fine, because I think he has plenty of guys to go against. Because I mean, the world's their oyster once they have a babyface champion, because they've done a very good job of babyface versus babyface with AEW. I think you can get away with a lot more of that. I wouldn't be surprised if Adam Page is the world champion. I wouldn't be surprised if that's when we see Cody Rhodes go back on his deal. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see Cody Rhodes versus Adam Page at some point.
One thing I wanted to ask you guys about that ladder match, because we all know, we all saw when it came down to Moxley against Adam Page, and they were taking shots. Did it look like they rushed to the finish a little bit there?
You mean did Moxley just jump off the ladder for no reason? Yes.
Yeah. And it just seemed like they're like, oh crap, we don't have much time. We got to do this right now.
Yeah, I wasn't gonna say it because, as I said,
I will flat out say, I think it's because that opening match went a half hour.
Yeah.
It was long.
Like when we're talking about earlier about some people not getting enough time, thumbs cutting down. AEW is just as guilty as this too. It's just it's not going to the women. Although
No, it is. It is. They're just
well,
and that brings me to my point. Is I love the idea that they're bringing in the TBS title, and we'll get a chance to full circle back to time in just a second. The TBS title is great. That being said, you've now branded 2 titles with television marketing. Are TBS and TNT going to be able to give them the money that they want? Turner Broadcasting. Are they going to be able to give them the money that they need and the money that they deserve when in 3 years it comes around time for them to sign new media rights deals? We're seeing WWE now. We'll get to the women's division because that's where I think the TBS title talk needs to go.
yeah.
We'll do that quickly in a minute. But I want to go to the TV rights deal talk. Because with all the talk of ratings and with all the talk of we're going head to head and things like that, if AEW wants to compete financially, like to start bringing in cash, I don't know if they can stay on Turner Networks.
But it's a 3-year deal. So you've got these
For now.
titles, you've got 3 years already guaranteed with those companies. You put your loyalty, you put your branding, you put your name behind them. I mean, if you start drawing those viewers to those networks are going to have more money to give out. But at the same time, if you grow and move on, 3 years down the line is a long time that you can just come around and rebrand those titles if you do get a bigger deal from a bigger network.
Okay. And now going back to the bigger point with the TBS title.
Question though, because I know Ed, you're in the States. Cody and I are in Canada. When are we getting the TSN title?
We're probably not.
Like, come on.
The
World champion's Canadian. We got to get the stamp down. We got to care about the Canadian television deals here. You know, we got Canadian monopoly money that we're handing out.
Yeah, your money has colors on it. It's really weird. I don't understand it. Anyway,
Your money has
Neither do
colors,
we.
it's just not as bright of colors.
no, our color is green. Like the bill is green. You guys have like green and like blue and like yellow.
Our money's
and
see through. How dare you?
orange. Wait, has the money changed since the last time I was in Canada 10 years ago? or
Oh
15
my
years
God.
ago?
It's plastic.
Anyways, moving on.
If I had my wallet here, I would have shown you.
Back. I'm not looking at the comments. Back. I have both. I just realized this. I've been doing a whole show with the 2 guys who screwed up my comments on NXT. Anyways.
Yeah, there you go. That's why the comments are fine today.
Oh, look. And that's why Ashton
He's laughing at us.
That being said, I want to get back to this because I know we're running to the point where we normally start talking about, calling it quits for the day. Does AEW have a fleshed out enough on television, not on AEW Dark, not on AEW Elevation, because they have a big, well diverse roster of women on those shows. Do they spend enough time on the women's division to have 2 titles where they can tell 2 different women's stories at the same time?
On the main shows?
On
Not necessarily.
Dynamite and Rampage.
It doesn't need to be on the main shows. Honestly, they Dark is usually 4 to 6 women's matches on both Dark and Elevation. That they're putting 13 to 14 women's matches on their programs per week at least. You have enough women in that division that you can do it. They're going to have to, if they want the TBS title to specifically be on the TBS station and not utilized on Dark, they're going to have to do more with it. But as far as what they have in that women's division and the number of characters that they have built up, from your Sheetas and your Nyla Rose and your Britt Bakers all the way down to your Sky Blues and lesser names like a Emi Sakura and that have really been focused on Dark. You've got plenty of people there that you can tell 2 stories with. It's something they're going to have to work and build on and actually focus on making sure that they really emphasize those 2 titles on a Dynamite and Rampage every week. But they've got more than enough women's talent developed in the company to do it.
Would it have been better? Would it have? I'm going to throw this out there and see how this sticks. Would it have been better if they had named this the Fight TV title or the YouTube title and put it on the internet and left it for their Dark and their Dark Elevation where they're highlighting so much more women's talent and so many more women's matches? Would it have made more sense?
Just rename it. If you're not like, making it the TBS title is possibly a branding thing. Maybe TBS, put a sponsorship deal on the title to have it named after them.
Mhm.
If you're only going to fight and defend it on a TBS network, then yes, you're right. Maybe naming it something different. But you also could have just called it something completely different and just had it as a secondary title to fight with over all 4 of their brands.
Mhm.
And definitely that could be done in a way and utilized that when you've got a feud big enough to warrant a Dynamite or a Rampage spotlight, absolutely. But when you've got something like the Big Swole Demente match that happened last month, where it's the main event on an AEW Dark, and it was a killer 3 strikes match that those 2 women had, that match probably could have really benefited from having a secondary title on top of it on the YouTube show.
Like I said, I'm not, and I said this in the Slack chat, and I take a lot of shots at AEW because I'm trying to figure out how I'm a fan, but I'm not drawn in by AEW week in and week out. Matt specifically asked me, he's like, you're not an AEW fan? I go, no, I am. I love what they do. I just wish that they would do what they do better and do it without having to be the little brother swinging up every time. They give me that small man complex of I've got to make sure I mention everybody else when I'm doing my thing.
It's something I feel like gets a lot more focus than the stuff that they actually do well.
Agreed.
Not by AEW, by fans. I feel fans really stick on those points when AEW takes their swings at WWE. I don't feel like they're doing it as much as I did before I started watching AEW regularly. It was all I heard about as a casual fan when I wasn't tuning in, week out to Dynamite. All I ever heard of was, this ex-WWE person, that ex-WWE. Everybody's taking swings and shots and hating on WWE after they leave. Now that I tune into Dynamite week in, week out, and Rampage, they really don't do it as much as they get the cred for. The guys come in, if like Adam Cole or Ruby Soho come in, they take their shot on that first night in, and then they move on and move forward.
Mhm.
And I'm okay with that way of doing it. That, you know what, those quick little jabs, those smart, intelligent comments where it's, swinging at somebody saying you had to get dragged out of developmental stuff like that. It's clever enough to fit in a story or like whoever you're fighting to take a shot at you for it. But you move on and you move into the feud. You don't keep swinging back every week, and I don't feel like they do.
Okay.
What I find like these guys do is they create that kind of that awareness from the fans, like, oh my God, he said this because he's taking a shot. It's not really a shot. It's just one of those things to get people talking about you, because that's what you want as a professional wrestler. But like, we really saw AEW kind of complete itself by when, the Bryan Danielsons, the Adam Coles, even the Andrades kind of came in, and now you kind of have a full complete package now. Whereas before that, I would say AEW had pieces missing in their show. What I think the fans do is generate the narrative and almost really go off the generality of a situation. I love what AEW is doing. I just don't think it's the best, because I'm seeing through the shine of a new toy, and I'm seeing if it's a toy I really think can hold its own and be a toy I still want to play with 5-10 years later. And the one thing I think about AEW is I like to watch the things develop and progress, whereas people, and I know I said this earlier, want to just give this instant gratification of being amazing right away, while you're forgetting the fact that you're going to see these learning curves that they're going to have. You're going to see this developing aspects. They're going to make mistakes along the way. And we saw that at, Revolution, where you wanted the big boom, but you got a wet fart instead. In that, so like, AEW is still a work in progress. It's just really good because it started off a lot farther along the lines than when TNA did. And we all wanted TNA to succeed just as much as we're loving the fact that AEW is doing well. I think when we're talking about, and I'm going to throw this back into that women's division with that title, I'd rather them just make that women's division matter, to whereas this women's title was so strong it could have been used on both shows instead of just adding a secondary title. because now I feel like Britt Baker's going to do her thing on Dynamite, and you're going to get 2, 3, maybe 4 people there. But then maybe you give this, TBS title to like a Tay Conti or a Ruby Soho, and there's going to be almost like just a cut through, our perceived who we think are the top tier and the mid tier, instead of making, this division really big as a whole. So, I think there's a lot of learning curve still that we got to figure out, but we got to give it the time to develop before we just say it's here, here, here. It doesn't matter. Do you like it or not? That's all that matters.
And we're going to give Cody the last word here.
I would like to see the TBS title go the route of what they've done with the TNT title, where it's more of a fighter's title, where it's defended on a regular basis. Make your secondary titles the ones that get fought for every week on TV, on your regular shows. Anybody can come up and challenge, open challenges, mini feuds, things like that, like what Miro had did with it, what Sammy's doing with it. And then you make your top champion feel more special. You don't defend the top title on your TV shows. You save your Omega feuds. You save your Britt Baker feuds, your Hangman Pages. Those matches are the ones that get saved and only happen on your All-Ins or your Full Gears or your really, really big special shows like the one that just happened at Arthur Ashe. Things like that, where you've got a really, really special event, a big show in a big stadium, even if it is a Dynamite, you make those titles feel like a spectacle. Not so much like Lesnar, where he would take it and disappear for 4 months, where you still have them on the show in their tag matches, building their feuds. Britt has Reba and Jamie Hayter in her corner to fight her battles for her now that you have to get through her other women to get her to the top or get to her. And then you've got Kenny, who had the Elite going for him, and you have to fight through tag matches and 6-mans and 8-mans and whatever with the Elite. You keep those titles feeling strong. You keep them feeling like you actually have to earn your title matches at the top, whereas your TNT and TBSs are the titles that you can fight for at any time.
All right. And we're going to go ahead and plug our stuff. So, Parrish, plug your stuff.
I can, but I'm not wearing pants. Oh, wait, sorry.
I didn't say show your stuff. I said plug your stuff.
I'm actually not wearing pants. I got shorts on, so I can't say that. But what you can do is if you're in the Edmonton area tonight, you can find me at the Norwood Legion for Real Canadian Wrestling right here tonight. You can go to Eventbrite and get your tickets. You can get your tickets at the door. But please, whatever you do, whatever you're doing tonight, just make sure you're safe. Make sure if you have any COVID restrictions, you're keeping safe. You're being, courteous to other people. But if you have a chance to support your local wrestling, please do so. And please support RCW tonight if you can. Follow me on the socials at Chris Parrish, at Chris.Parrish, at the Chris Parrish, whether it's Twitter, Instagram, or Twitch. But also make sure you go to lovewrestling.ca. Make sure you're changing the game and getting your tickets if you're in the area for next Saturday's premier inaugural event, changing the game. And please, whatever you do, just make sure you're courteous and enjoy it, because that's what we're all about here at Love Wrestling.
Cody, plug it.
Plug it. Tuesday nights, NXT, right here on all the Love Wrestling channels. Myself and Ed, joined by Astrid, talking all things NXT. You can find me here almost every Tuesday, unless I'm on location. You can find me here on the weekends as well. Next weekend, I'll be back for more New Japan G1 Climax reactions, going through the entire week of G1 action, looking ahead to what's coming up. We're getting close to the end of the G1. We'll see if we keep up the NJPW shows after that, but love for everybody to join us and talk NJPW every weekend. Reacts, blowing off stream, Sunday brunch. I pop in wherever I can, so keep your eyes on all of the Love Wrestling socials. Make sure you've got that subscription and that follow up for twitch.tv/lovewrestlingca, exclusive streaming home of Love Wrestling's Change the Game next Friday night. You can follow to watch for free. You can subscribe if you want to join the chat, talk with our team while we're all watching the show together.
And you can find me at edfries12584. But more importantly than any of plugging my stuff, I'm going to plug Astrid's thing tomorrow, because this is very important. And I know that she hates it when I plug her stuff. So that being said, Knockouts Knockdown tomorrow night, the reaction show with not with Parrish. No Parrish on that show. Parrish might be in the comments, but he won't be on the show. With Astrid, a special guest, and Mel will be joining as an all-female team reacts to Knockouts Knockdown from Impact Wrestling, which you can watch tonight on Fight TV, and Impact, and then you can go ahead and watch that tomorrow as the React show. Everybody, have a great day. Enjoy and love wrestling. And